I am Anna Brown. I am one of the managers at Katie Budget Books, and I'm in charge of our events. I'm going to go ahead and give you my very minimal parenting credentials. I am by no means an expert, but I am the mother of three boys, ages 17, 3.5, and 1.5. So I've got the teen experience going on right now and also the little ones, which is super fun. But I have been reading a whole lot of parenting books for these parenting panels. We are so excited to be able to put these together during this time. 2020 has not been a fantastic year in a lot of ways, but it has allowed us the opportunity to do stuff like this, where we can bring together some authors for things like this that maybe we couldn't get together in store all at the same time. And I have learned a lot about parenting from reading all of these parenting books this year. So we are so thrilled to have you guys here with us. And we are super excited about our panelists tonight for our parenting goals panel. We are getting ready to go into 2021, which hopefully will be a better year than 2020. But I know that for me, one of the things that came out of all of this craziness this year is that I've really been reevaluating what my family life looks like, because some things just kind of had to change. And a lot of it was spur of the moment, not intentional. And so I'm really looking forward into 2021, deciding how I want those changes to look for my family and which pieces of that I want to keep, and having some more intention about how my family's run. And all three of these ladies with us this evening have written about that on some level or another, really thinking with intention about what your family should look like. So I'm really excited to have all of them with us. So we have Melanie Dale, who is the author of Calm the Heck Down. It's about lightening up about parenting, which I personally love. And Kelly Rippon has written Parent Up, and she is the mom of 6 kids, including Olympic medalist Adam Rippon. So she has written a book about how you were an influence in your kid's life, which was super fascinating, you guys. And I'm so excited for her to tell you about it. And then Emily Weeks is here for Kindred Table, which is about kind of intuitive eating, which is a concept I did not know the name of, but something that actually we've started trying to implement in my family prior to reading this book this year. So I was super grateful to have some guidance about that, because we were having a lot of dinner time battles with three boys of three very different ages. And my middle son, the 3.5-year-old in particular, just is in that phase where he wants to control everything that he can. And we were having some real dinner table battles happening, trying to get him to eat. And so reorganizing how we feed our family has been something we've been working on. And I loved this book for that. So we are thrilled to have all three of these ladies here with us this evening. And what we're going to do, if this is your first time at one of our parenting panels, first of all, we're in Zoom webinar. So you can see us, but we can't see you. And that's just so that you guys can always see the panelists that are speaking. But there is a Q&A box. If any questions occur to you in the middle of anything, go ahead and type them there and we'll address them at the end. And if you cannot find the Q&A box for some reason, I will also be monitoring the chat so you can type things in there. I'll be introducing each of our panelists, and then they'll be talking for 10 to 15 minutes about their books and how that relates to parenting goals for the upcoming year. And then at the end, we'll address all questions. So thank y'all attendees. And I'm going to switch our view to where you'll see the speakers. And first, we are going to hear from Melanie Dale. She is an author, speaker, podcaster, and mother of 3 children from 3 different continents. She and her husband live in the Atlanta area. They have successfully kept their kids alive for a combined total of 227,760 hours, give or take, which I suspect has changed since the writing of that bio. Melanie's a staff writer for Coffee and Crumbs, has appeared on numerous radio shows and podcasts, was a panelist on the television show Moms Every Day for 2 seasons, and has been featured in articles in Real Simple, The Bump, Working Mother, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and the Los Angeles Times. So welcome, Melanie.
Thanks so much for having me. And Anna, your voice is so soothing that that needs to be a way that I calm the heck down. Just listening to you, I'm like, you have a radio voice, girl.
You.
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it? Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to talk about how to calm the heck down in the new year, because I do think 2020 has been a bit of a doozy. So first, let me just introduce myself a little bit. I do have 3 kids. I've been married to my college sweetheart for 20 years. And I have 3 kids from 3 continents, which I'll just break that down for you a little bit. We had our son, Elliot, who is now 13 after a long battle with infertility. And then we adopted our youngest daughter, Evie, from Ethiopia when she was 2, and she is now 11. And then we adopted our oldest daughter, Anna, from Latvia when she was 9, and now she's 16. So we have 3 kids from 3 different continents. We adopted out of birth order, and so we've had a lot to learn to calm the heck down about. And that all of that process, the infertility and the adoptions, and just accruing my family took 12 years. And at the end of that long journey, I really thought, okay, now the fun begins, right? That was hard. But then I describe in the book, I went through a period of time called, I call label palooza, when I found myself sitting across from doctors and specialists and teachers and therapists giving me labels for some of my kids. And I realized in all of that parenting was going to look a little different than I thought it was. And I knew that I needed to learn to lighten up in the midst of the hard stuff, which has come in handy this year as we are all, as a world, globally experiencing hard stuff and figuring out how to lighten up in the middle of that. And so one of the big things right away that I learned I needed to do, and that I've been doing all over again this year, is lowering my expectations, learning to lower your expectations. Maybe it won't be great, but maybe it'll be good enough. And I tend to approach things like, oh, it's going to be just a blinding success or an epic failure, but typically things are somewhere in between. And so one thing that has helped me is to figure out my non-negotiables. What are the things that are non-negotiables for your family? And for my family, with some of the things we've got going on in our family, there are certain needs that my kids have that they have to have. And I have learned, as that long list of needs has piled up, to let go of everything else. So what are your non-negotiables, and let go of everything else? So for instance, I had one kid who decided to wear 2 different shoes, and it drove me bananas because I would look and go, well, that's got to be painful. And it was embarrassing because they went to school this way, and I was like, this is ridiculous. And I knew, though, it's not a non-negotiable. Eventually this would work itself out, and I did not need to expend any energy on this. And sure enough, a couple weeks after wearing 2 different shoes to school every day, my kid finally decided that her feet hurt, and she stopped doing it, and we moved on, and I didn't have to waste any time on that because it wasn't that important anyway. Another thing that's helped us is to separate what we can and can't control. And this has been true from when my kids were little to now that I'm raising teenagers, and especially in the middle of a pandemic where it feels like we cannot control anything. So separating out what I can and can't control, and focusing on what I can control and things that I can actually do and be proactive about, and letting go of the things that I can't. For instance, as the pandemic kind of rolled out, I know most of us probably experienced that feeling of getting our inboxes filled with emails of all the things that were being canceled. Sports and activities and school, and just everything was canceled. And we're going through that over and over again as the months wear on. And so I cannot control whether or not my kids get to do their sports, but what I can control is whether or not my kids get exercise. And so rather than worry about and focus on trying to figure out how I could control my city's soccer schedule, or my son being able to get back in the pool with his swim team, I can't control that, but I can control whether or not they got exercise. So we were doing mommy yoga time and going for walks and getting my kids out riding bikes. And so being able to focus on what I can control has helped me be able to calm the heck down about everything else. This year, I really want to embrace good enough parenting and second best options, because we may not get our first best options, and second best is sometimes good enough. And speaking of second best options, our youngest child wanted a rabbit as a pet for her birthday, which was just in the last few days. But we realized that our dogs would definitely eat the rabbit. For sure. Like it was going to be bloody. Our house was going to be like a Tarantino movie. That was not going to be a good choice for us. And so instead of getting a rabbit, we got her a hamster, in a nice cozy cage where it could be safe. And so we got her a hamster. She named the hamster Coco. Coco loves her hamster wheel. And sometimes, since we gave it to her last week, I have been wandering into Evie's room to watch Coco run on her hamster wheel. And it is fascinating. If any of you guys have a hamster at home, you know what I mean. They just run their little legs over and over again. And they run and they run. And I watched Coco, and she's just tiring herself out and accomplishing nothing. And I felt for Coco because it reminds me of me as a parent sometimes. And I thought to myself, I often run on a hamster wheel and feel like I'm never going to get off this hamster wheel. We feel like we have to be Pinterest perfect. We get on social media and we see like everyone else is nailing it. Oh, pandemic parenting is going so much better for everyone else on the internet, and at home it's like a total mess and chaos. So I want to share 3 ways that you can get off the hamster wheel and learn to calm the heck down this year. So they are cheating, saying no, and delegating. And so let me break that down for you. Cheating, first of all, we don't have to do everything from scratch. We don't have to do everything perfectly. I'm a big fan of cheating when it comes to parenting. And so, for instance, my kids love to make gingerbread houses. And, every Christmas we do the gingerbread houses, and I see the ones online and there's recipes and there's Pinterest and it all looks so perfect. But all I do for gingerbread houses is I go to the store and buy 3 boxes of prefab gingerbread houses with all of the decorations already inside. And I just hand each of my children a box. That's it. That is my entire part of the entire project. I hand each of my children a box, and then I take pictures as they make delightful messes with their gingerbread pieces and decorate and get frosting all over the place. It's great. Cheating. I'm not doing that from scratch. When they're done, we wrap it all up and we throw it away in the trash can. Easy. So I'm always looking for ways to cheat, whether it's making the Whack-A-Can cinnamon rolls or instead of the homemade ones, or I'm getting boxes of gingerbread cookies instead of actually making them from scratch. Figure out how you can cheat and embrace it. There's no shame in cheating. And then saying no. A while ago, one of my daughters came to me and said, "Mom, when are we going to have mother-daughter crafting time?" And I looked at her sweet face and I said, "Never." And she froze like I was letting down her childhood dreams. "Oh, what do you mean? We're never going to have mother-daughter craft time?" Never. No, I would need a personality transplant in order to do mother-daughter craft time with one of my kids. That's never going to happen. And it's okay to say no. And that leads me to the 3rd thing, which is delegating. I'm never going to craft with my kids. I don't know how to do that. That would be exhausting for me. But I have friends and I have family members who are totally willing to do craft time with my children. And so you can delegate. And I think that's the thing that has been huge for me, is embracing the fact that we don't have to do everything ourselves, that we can delegate things. We can say no when we can't do something, and it's okay to cheat sometimes. So those are 3 ways to get off the hamster wheel so we don't all look like my new pet hamster, Coco. And then the last thing that I want to offer to calm the heck down in the new year is to cultivate a home filled with laughter. This one is huge for me, you guys. We have to fight fear with laughter. And I always think about Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban when I think about laughter, that Harry and his friends, they learned how to fight the boggart with laughter. If you've read the book, the boggarts would assume whatever the person was most fearful of. And so like Ron Weasley was scared to death of spiders. And so he would picture the spider on roller skates, which would make it laughable. And then he wasn't afraid of it anymore and his spell would work. And so I think about that when I think about the things that are that we have that are fearful. 2020 has had a lot to be scared of. 2021, I mean, the fear is still a real thing. And so as we're parenting our kids through this, and as we're shepherding our own selves through this, I think we can fight fear with laughter. So one thing that's helped me this last year that I will be carrying into 2021 is to develop a laughter list, a list that I just create throughout the year. I just keep it in the notes section of my phone. You could put it in a journal or wherever you want, but anytime something makes me laugh, I just add it to the list. So then in the times when nothing is funny and it's really hard to find something to laugh about, I can consult my list and go, well, what's made me laugh in the past? And find my way to laughter again. And one thing that was huge for me just recently, even the holidays were, they're difficult. Our kids are home from school. There's a lot of pressure, especially on us as parents during this time. And so I went out and bought myself a life-sized Buddy the Elf to blow up in the front yard. And I plug him in every night, and he rises out of the puddle on my lawn, and he makes me laugh. It's Will Ferrell in his little yellow tights greets me. So every time I come home at night, life-size Buddy the Elf is grinning his silly grin at me, and it has made me enter the home filled with laughter and a little bit lighter to be able to handle whatever was waiting me through that door. So yeah, 2020 has been a bit of a doozy. It has. And I don't know what 2021 is going to throw at us, but I do know one thing, and I repeat this to myself and to my kids all the time: laughter makes us brave. Laughter makes us brave. It really does. And so I just want to leave you with this: that we are doing a good job. We're doing a great job. No other generation of parents has experienced anything like this in over a century. I am so stinking proud of us. I really am. Sometimes when I think about how hard this is, parenting through this pandemic, with everything going on in the world, I'm so proud of us. We have pivoted so hard this year that it's basically a pirouette at this point. We're all ballerinas. So no matter what 2020 has thrown at us, we continue to adapt. This week, just one thing that you can do as we cross over into 2021, I want you to make a list of 10 things that you've done well this past year and read it out loud to yourself in a mirror. And I'm going to do that too. And I'm excited to see where 2021 takes us, and laughter is going to make us brave.
Thank you so much, Melanie. So next we have Kelly Rippon. Kelly Rippon started her consulting company, Authentic Change Incorporated, in 2006 with the mission of changing the world one conversation at a time. She's traveled extensively across Asia, Europe, and throughout the United States, speaking to and interviewing hundreds of people about how the influences they met had shaped their perspectives. Those conversations, combined with her work as a college instructor, corporate trainer, and single mother of 6 incredible children, including her oldest son, Olympic medalist Adam Rippon, prompted her to write Parent Up, an empowering book about developing an effective leadership perspective while building resiliency, empathy, and optimism. And one of the things I loved most about Parent Up, having read a lot of parenting books this year in preparation for parenting panels, is that it didn't read like a how-to parent book. That it was a lot of different stuff than I had thought of. And I actually really love, Kelly, you start out telling the story of painting around your house and sort of redecorating and retheming your home, which is something I definitely want to carry into 2021. So thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Well, thank you for having me. And I just want to say to Melanie, I just learned that for all of my parenting, my oldest is 30. So I thought gingerbread houses came in boxes. So I didn't even know. I didn't
Perfect.
even know that you could actually bake them. I thought they were safe for Hallmark movies. I've only purchased boxed. So far so good with us. But I appreciate that, Anna. Thank you. The like you said, for the last 2 or 3 decades, I have been either teaching or traveling and communicating. I studied life coaching overseas, so I made a lot of friends. In Europe and learned different parenting styles, and it fascinated me about, like you say, the not a lower expectation so much, but just not so much sharing the responsibility, and I learned a lot through that. So I applied a lot of those lessons that I learned into this book, because there truly is not a how-to parent. Because having 6 children, I've had to use a different leadership model with each of the kids. Some are a little more sensitive than others. Some are much more assertive than others. Some are their communication skills are higher than others. So it really depends on the style of your child and what is best effective for them. So the message that you're talking about on the back porch was, I got divorced when my children were very young, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13. So at the time, I wanted to convey the message that their dad was not coming back into our home, because I stayed in the house that they grew up in. And I felt like after a few months, I wanted to make sure that they weren't romanticizing the idea that somehow, because we were communicating, we were suddenly going to be in the same house again. So I wrote a message on the back deck: "In this home lives." And what I did was, instead of just writing a roll call of who was in the home, I wrote a message and I gave each of the children a moniker. And it wasn't a moniker or a description of who I hoped they would be. It was who I saw them as they already were. So I wrote on the porch, "In this home lives Adam, a champion; Tyler, a creator; Brady, a genius; Jordan, a master teacher; Dagny, a leader; Sawyer, a multitude of joy; and Kelly, who is blessed with abundance." And I just wrote it there and never said a word. The kids, of course, saw it and didn't really say too much about it. Because up to this time, like when your mom is a motivational speaker, you are living in a 24/7 self-development seminar. So you cannot escape, like Stephen Covey, instead of Baby Shark, do. It's Stephen Covey is playing in the car and the audio system. So that's how they grew up, with those kinds of being mindful of what they said. We talked about self-talk, and I would say, just subtle things like, "Shh, your brain is listening." If they would say something like, "I'll never get this," or "I'll never be good at this," and I would say, "Shh, your brain is listening, and your brain is listening to those cues. Your brain wants to be right. So you have to give your brain the right instructions." So over time, that's why I think I say my parenting book is different, because I actually bring the receipts. My children are adults now, 20 to 30 years old, and I was able to interview them before writing the book, and I was able to get their impressions of what worked, what didn't work, and what really resonated with them. And that's how it was revealed to me how different. I knew they were different, but I didn't realize that treating them differently really created this awesome relationship and these interpersonal relationships that they have with each other. And I think for parents, creating leaders are people who are, when you are creating a leadership model, you're creating leaders. You're not creating dutiful children that will follow you. You're creating children that are curious, that ask questions, that are lifetime learners, that are that have empathy, and that they understand the value of the value of other people. And just because someone doesn't disagree with you doesn't mean that you don't have to respect what they're saying, and those are those things about, kindness isn't something that you do. It reveals who you are. So they're just the different concepts. And what I did was I took the 10 qualities or influences, as I call them in the book, and I broke them into different corporate training modules that I did in the workshops that I would do for different corporations. And one of them was actively listening. And there's another about customer service, conflict resolution. And there's about building teams. And that was very helpful. And about just to one, I use a Disney model. So if you're a Disney fan, you'll identify with using the 4 steps Disney uses into creating. It's creating a journey so that parenting, in the hectic times and in the joyous times, just like going to Disneyland, is an experience. But they give you options so that waiting in line is fun. Because they have entertainment and they have different things going on, and misted fans and music and characters coming up to you. So everything, even waiting in line is an experience that they give you an option to engage with. And I talk about that in the book, about how There is no, I encourage parents to not starve themselves of joy, waiting for that like one magical moment, like seeing your child on an Olympic podium or something like that. Because I was just as proud of him, my oldest, that actually did accomplish that, as I was when he tied his shoes for the first time. Or I was just as proud of him when he wrote a book as I was when he read his first few words. So there is no measure. Like, it's kind of like being pregnant. You are or you're not. And you're either filled with pride or you're not. There isn't like, I'm a little bit proud of you. You're just proud. And I try to like connect parents with that. Like, don't wait for them to graduate. You know, when they come home and they're just filled with that sense of self satisfaction, that's pride.
I really enjoyed the formatting of your book, how it was broken into the different ways that we
Mhm.
influence our kids. Um, because it just made me think about things in a way that I hadn't really before. I mean, I, like most parents, I think, am doing the best that I can with what I have on a regular basis. And I do try to model good behavior in my home, but I hadn't really thought about the fact that like we are the influence our kids are most exposed to, and that sometimes when they're seeing behaviors that even aren't the norm for us, they start to think that that's okay. Um,
Like the telemarket story. There's a
yes.
telemarketer story that I tell in the book, and that, you know how we get spam on the on cell phones, but there was a time where we all had landlines too, and my daughter was about 10, I think 10 or 11, and my general script was, oh hi, this is Kelly. No, I'm sorry, I don't take solicitation on the phone. Have a great day. Thanks for calling me. And I would say goodbye, thank you, and then they would say okay, and then I would hang up the phone. Well, my daughter said, she said, why didn't you just tell them next time? I'll answer and I'll tell them that you're not here. And that just like alarmed me that she would feel so comfortable lying. So I started like asking her more questions of where did she learn like that it would be okay. So I said, what gave you that idea? And then she started talking about it, and she said that it's not her understanding of it was it wasn't a lie if you didn't tell the truth to someone you didn't know. And just by simply telling her that a telemarketer is a job. People that answer the phone, that's their job. That's how they buy food, and that's how they pay rent, and that's how they buy their kids clothes. That's that woman's job. So I shouldn't be hanging up and lying to her. She's only doing what her company has asked her to do. And once my daughter understood that, because she didn't understand what a telemarketer was, she just picked up being at a friend's house that the mom had told the daughter, her friend, tell them I'm bathing the baby, and which she wasn't. And the daughter lied. And it was just kind of like, we think that's cute, like, oh, tell them I'm not here. But you're not really, you're actually setting the bar so that your kids think that's okay. And you don't think about those things at the time. And it's so much easier just to start off with the truth, So we become better people. Like, I was not this thoughtful and mindful 6 kids ago. It was trying, like they say, if you want to really learn something, teach it to someone else. And like if you're skilled, at a language, then teach someone else, or math, or some sort of theory, teach it to someone else, and then you start to pick up the different steps of it. And I think that that's how parenting like this, with this intentional thought behind it, and understanding the power of your influence, that they think that what you're doing is the best. Like a child, even if you are like not a thoughtful parent or even abusive parent, your child is really looking up to you, and they're thinking that they belong to you, and they just want to please you. So if you kind of take that pressure off and from the start, I already said to my, the one son that ended up being a scientist, I had told him he was a genius when he was like 5 years old. And just kind of like matter of fact, oh, you must be a genius, because we had done this little water game. So I could see when I said it, he kind of leaned in like he was the third in line, and he took that like it was the truth. And I thought, I hope like he's good at school, because I kind of suggest by suggesting somebody is something like a quality. I don't certainly mean like, if someone said like you're a very talented cook, or you're great at baking, they become better because they've already set the bar of competence. Like they've already met that. So my son acted like a genius, even though he had no idea what his intellectual capacity was. But being that it was suggested to him and he connected with that idea, he started being very curious about things and taking things apart and reading, and kind of set the bar internally for himself that he should learn more and he should do more, And of course, in the book, I do talk about how that got him into trouble sometimes because he was so curious about things. But in the end, now we see at the end what has happened to him, and he works in epidemiology, and during a pandemic, it's very handy to have someone that has data, informational data that you can rely on. But those are the things, I suggested to Adam that he was a champion, not because he was winning anything, because he acted like a winner. He was able to take criticism. He was able to not take it as an insult. He took it as critical analysis in order to apply improvement and synthesize something better than was there before. And he was, applied himself. And just, I talk about one of the best things a parent can do is to try and introduce habits to their children that are lifelong. Like his habit isn't skating. His habit is that he's able to get up early. He's able to, set goals. He's able to listen to criticism and get feedback. He's able to keep a schedule. He's able to troubleshoot and to be flexible with change in time and change in arrangement, change in opportunity. So those are the things that you want to have your kids embrace. Not so much good at things. You want them to feel good about who they are. So.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And last, we have Emily Weeks. She's an RDN and LD and is a nutrition and culinary communications expert based in Dallas. Emily believes the path to a nourished, happy life is to develop a healthy relationship with food, our minds, and our bodies. By cooking more at home, eating and moving intuitively, we can achieve peace of mind and be happy in the here and now. You can follow along on zenandspice.com for delicious, easy recipes and simple strategies to learn how to become comfortable in the kitchen and embrace mindfulness. She has been featured on Cosmopolitan, BuzzFeed, and the Huffington Post, and recently won the Texas Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics 2016 Media Award. Emily partners with like-minded food brands and organizations on recipe development, food photography, nutrition communications, and media spokesperson work. She's won several recipe competitions and blog awards. Emily graduated with honors from Texas Women's University with a Bachelor of Science in Nutrition and completed her dietetic internship at Baylor University Medical Center in Dallas. She lives in Wiley with her husband, daughter, and schnoodle puppy. When she's not cooking or blogging, Emily loves taking her dog for a walk, going to yoga or cycling classes, and binge watching TV shows with her husband, Nick. And I am really looking forward to making the waffle recipe from Kindred Table because I just got a brand new mini waffle iron for Christmas. So I was super stoked to see some waffles I can make and then freeze on my own. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Emily.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, like she said, I'm a registered dietitian here in Dallas. I've been writing a food blog for about 8 years now, full time, and doing food photography for different clients and things like that. But the past couple of years, I've really taken an interest and focus on intuitive eating. and started writing the book and working on that. Um, and my book, well, you passed out the information for the books before, I think you said, but it's called Kindred Table, and it was released last month. And it's kind of an interesting book because it's half chapter book about intuitive eating and then half recipe book. So it's kind of like a lot of 9 chapters about intuitive eating and then 50 recipes. So it's really interesting to write because usually cookbooks are like one or just only recipes or only chapters. So it was a really fun project. Um, so a little bit about intuitive eating, if you uh, are not familiar with the concept, intuitive eating is really about learning to pay attention to your body and your hunger and fullness cues, taking care of yourself in a way where you aren't shaming yourself for the food choices you make and for your weight and your body size, and really taking care of yourself in other ways, which I'll talk a little bit about, other than focusing on what your body looks like and how much you weigh. And the book really focuses on how to adopt intuitive eating and then how to teach your children about it and how to have healthy, balanced meals with your children. So, a little bit about how I got into intuitive eating. So, I've been a dietitian for almost 9 years now. And my first job that I ever had, I worked in a hospital, and I was doing counseling with heart failure patients, um, mostly diets and low sodium diets, and teaching them how to count their calories and lose weight and all that. And what I found was that people just had a really hard time sticking to the diet, which I'm sure we are all familiar with, trying to stick to a diet. And I noticed they would lose the weight, they'd be happy and great, and then a couple months later they'd gain it all back, come right back to me again, and that cycle would just repeat over and over again. And I started thinking, what's going on here? Why is it so hard for not just my patients at the heart hospital, but just in general for people to stick to diets and to lose weight and keep it off? And that's when I discovered the concept of intuitive eating, um, where you really want to reject that diet culture where we think we have to look a certain way or be a certain weight to be healthy, and that's really not the case. And and what we should be focusing on is taking care of ourselves um, in other ways. So making sure we're eating enough fruits and vegetables, like keeping a balanced diet, but not cutting out our favorite foods, our comfort foods, things that we love to eat, and trying to keep a balance of everything versus shaming certain foods or restricting, going on super low calorie diets or fad diets. Because what inevitably happens is we'll start this dieting cycle where we'll feel guilty about the way we look, and then we'll say, oh, we're going to start a diet, we're going to lose some weight, get back on track. So you start the diet, you'll lose a little bit of weight at first, you're excited about it, and then what happens is eventually you get tired of following those rules. You start having cravings, and then you fall off the wagon. Um, and then the whole cycle repeats itself because then you feel guilty and you go on a diet. And so I've noticed that we all who have experienced going on diets go through this cycle. So we want to break that diet cycle and focus on taking care of our bodies in different ways. So um, part of that is focusing on what our natural weight should be. And your natural weight is what you weigh when you aren't dieting and restricting, when you're actually taking care of yourself by trying to eat balanced meals, but not restricting your favorite foods. It's exercising, but actually enjoying the exercise instead of forcing yourself to do things that you just absolutely hate, just for the point of forcing your body to look a certain way. So there's a bunch of factors that come into play with your natural weight, but those are the main ones. Um, and as parents, um, it's really important from the beginning. I have a 2-year-old, and I'm actually pregnant. I'm 37 weeks pregnant right now. So I'm about to have baby number 2 probably like in the next week or two. But starting young and teaching them um, that we can all love our bodies no matter what size we are, and we can take care of ourselves without restricting and forcing ourselves to do things that we don't like and what we don't want to do. So part of that is modeling body positivity. So not engaging in fat talk at home, making fun of other people's bodies, obviously, that type of thing, and fat shaming yourself. So looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, oh, I feel so large today, like I feel so fat or ugly or whatever, trying to really watch what we say, because kids are like sponges, and they see you looking in the mirror and saying stuff about yourself. They will take that in and potentially feel the same way about themselves someday. So it's important to keep an eye on that. Getting rid of the scale in the house is another really great idea. And that can be a scary concept, to get rid of the scale in the house, because a lot of us have relied on that for so long to keep in check, with our weight. But weight is not the only factor to decide our health. There are so many other ways we can evaluate health besides weight. Our blood pressure, our blood sugar, how fit we are, how can you walk up and down the stairs and not get out of breath, that type of thing. And there's other things we can do to evaluate health besides weight. So I really recommend to hide the scale and don't let your kids see yourself weigh it, or just get rid of it altogether, because it really can't tell you that much about your health. And then another thing I recommend is to purge social media too, which is extremely important in today's world, especially with older kids and teenagers. Really watching who they follow, who you follow on social media, and if there's anyone that makes you feel bad about yourself, about the way you look, about the way you eat, about the way you exercise, to unfollow them and only follow people who um, encourage you and motivate you, but not in a way that makes you feel bad about yourself. Um, so anyway, those are some things, as far as teaching them about diet culture, and all that. Part of the book is about family meals, and teaching children, introducing them to a variety of different foods. Um, the big thing that I highlight is what's called the division of responsibility. So it's the parent's job to provide regular meals and snacks, buy the food, and offer a variety, and it's the kid's job to decide if they're going to eat and how much they're going to eat, which can vary greatly by every day. Especially as my 2-year-old, she will eat a gigantic lunch one day and then the very next day take like 2 bites. And that's something, I might have before said, oh, oh no, she's not eating today. What's wrong? She's she's sick or something. But kids vary their intake so much day by day, and as long as it balances out over time, and you can kind of tell when they catch up on their meals. If they don't eat well for a couple of meals and then all of a sudden they like eat this gigantic dinner, they're obviously catching up on their nutrition. So um, anyway, that's something to keep in mind. And when it comes to offering a variety, it's important to offer them foods over and over and over again, even if they're rejecting it, because it can take 20 to 30 exposures to a food before a kid will finally accept it, or even just pick it up on their fork and look at it. So I feel like a lot of parents, not necessarily, I wouldn't say give up, but it's easy to get really frustrated really early on when kids reject food, and just say, oh, after 3 tries, they don't like carrots. I'm never serving carrots ever again. But the point is to keep reintroducing it, cook it different ways, combine it with different foods, that type of thing. As long as you always have at least 1 or 2 things in the meal that they'll eat, you'll be fine. So anyway, so that's kind of the chapter about family meals. And if you had any questions about that section of the book, I'd be happy to answer them.
So, yes. So, we had actually just started doing last month the family style meal, because I grew up in a house where mom cooked what she cooked, and then that's what you ate or you didn't. which is still better than having a short order cook like my dad did at home. His mom made different meals for different family members, which oh, everything's fine here. Sorry. Which I cannot imagine. But so I was making a lot of casseroles and like one dish meals. And so that's all we had. And we were having trouble with my toddler. And another one of our parenting panelists from a previous month was talking about what a difference doing the family style meal with several different options had made for her family with that fight, where because sometimes my toddler refused to eat at all. And that does concern me when he's not eating at all for a couple of meals a day. Um, but for some reason, having a couple of things that I know he likes did not occur to me. But you also talk about the no thank you bite and the issue with that, which had not
Yeah.
occurred to me. And I'm confused about the no thank you bite a little bit.
Well, there is a concept that some parents have found helpful is to if when a kid rejects the meal, to encourage them to just take one bite and say no thank you. But in my experience in research, it's better to avoid doing that because you don't want to put any sort of weight to certain foods, and you don't want to pressure them to make you happy in regards to eating. So if you eat that one bite of asparagus, you'll make me so happy. Please just take the bite of asparagus. And so that's making them think that, in order to make my mom happy, I need to eat this food. And that kind of relates back to, you have to finish, when some parents would say, you have to finish your whole plate of food before you get dessert. So it's pleasing the parent. And although it's nice to feel happy as the parent, you don't want to put that pressure on them to have to do it in order to make you happy, because then that can kind of mess with their internal regulation and all of that. I would rather than see them just, if you offer a meal, let's say we have like tonight we had macaroni and cheese, lima beans, apple slices, and like ham, I think. And my daughter, she is not a fan of the ham, but she ate everything else. But I knew she liked at least two of the other things that I offer. So I know if she doesn't touch the lima beans and the ham, she'll be okay because she has those other options for her to eat. But the point is to introduce them and reintroduce them over and over again until they eventually take a bite or learn to like it. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yes. And then the only other like very specific thing, so this may just be a me issue, but it's probably not, is that you talk about offering like a sort of like mixed healthy and less healthy snack, although you don't use it, but like a vegetable and then chocolate, right? Like, or fruits and chocolate. But so I have a toddler who asks for candy at random times of day. And I think from reading the book that the solution to this is to have more regularly scheduled snack times so that the answer isn't necessarily no, you can't have candy today. It's just like, this is not time to eat. And then maybe that's one of the choices at snack time. But I did kind of want to clear that up because I don't really want him eating candy every time he asks for candy because that's all the time. But we had unhealthy snacks available in my house all the time growing up. We didn't have that. I actually have a mom that's struggled with compulsive eating a lot of her life. So snack foods were abundant in our house. But while she had her issues, she did not push them off onto us. We just knew that those were available. And so we didn't grow up with problems with that. We knew that snacks were available if we wanted them, and that was fine. But with my toddler, he would eat candy all day, every day if I would let him. And I don't want to do that. And we do have scheduled meal times, but the snack times are a little more casual. So I think maybe the solution to that is being like, it's not snack time right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I definitely having like scheduled sit down snacks, and remember the division of responsibility. So when they're that young, you are in charge of offering them their snack and their choices. They get to decide if they want to eat it or not. So if you decide to offer, here you can have like a little snack size like Snickers bar, maybe with a little tiny piece of fruit or something on the side. You can have that combination together, um, and to offer it to them every once in a while is, I think, perfectly fine, because again it takes that weight off of that food, and that's the main goal. I feel like when teaching kids to be balanced eaters is to take the weight off of certain foods. So you don't want candy to become this special item that um, you know you have to, it's only reward, only a special treat, but we can work it into our meals and our snacks. So some parents have found success with serving of the little candy bar like directly on their plate at dinner, with the rest of the foods, and that takes away the exciting part of it and just makes it feel like just part of the regular meal. So, but yeah, definitely offering it as part of the chosen snack of the day. And then on the days that he might ask for it, you just say, today's not, but we don't have candy for today's snack, but maybe, the next couple of days we'll have it available as an option for a snack, and just keep it as that. And eventually they'll learn to understand that.
All right. So we are going to open it up to, thank you so much, Emily. And we are going to open it up to questions from attendees. So if any of y'all have any questions, now would be a good time to put them in the Q&A box. And I'm going to switch back to gallery view so we can see everyone. Hello. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask. You guys are at different stages of parenting. All of you ladies are. Do you have any parenting goals going into 2021?
Survive life with a newborn.
Well, yes.
Well, I have 3 in college, so they are all working remotely. My daughter had to come back from California. I had another daughter that was studying abroad. She was in France, and a son that just started college. So they are all, you know, doing remote because my daughter's graduate school's in California, so their spring is canceled as well. So they'll be doing all remote work. I it's someone had approached me and said something about you're on the other side, like that once your children are of a certain age, somehow that you are no longer a parent. And you should never have been, a puppeteer. You're not that. That's not what a parent is, right? You're always a parent. It's a lifelong. You can be good at it or you don't have to be. Like there's no requirement. You do not have to be devoted, but you are a parent, whether you want to accept the role or not. And whether your child is a day old or whether like now that Emily, your baby's not even born yet, but yet you are preparing, right? You are still parenting. And I have my oldest, like I said, just turned 30, and I'm still his mother. So it's not a job. And I'll tell you that some of the most effective and dedicated, wise parents I have ever met are parents that have lost their children, that have like Judy and Dennis Shepherd. They have started foundations and have fought for our children, and have fought for the children of your children. So that have really advocated for all children. So parenting is lifelong, and when you can have these moments of connection, make the best of it. I love what Melanie said before, like the bar shouldn't be the stuff. The bar should be what you're doing with the stuff. Like just having fun and laughing and kind of making a mess. And as you're making the mess, make the plan of who's going to help clean it up. But, there's an old saying about like the vacuum looks great. The vacuum marks look so perfect, when your kids are in bed and you come downstairs and everything is put away. until your children are gone, you would give anything to have like those nerds or those jelly beans or Fruit Loops or what. And this is terrible. Emily's saying, what? Fruit Loops. But crackers or pretzels all over your rug again. So, whatever you've got, like whatever connection you have, whether it's trying to FaceTime with your kids in school, or if you've got little ones at home, or you're preparing a new nursery, like make the most of it because our lives are changing on a dime. I mean, we go into a day thinking like this is it, and then all of a sudden we find out no, it's not. So, like, make the most of what you have.
For me, I have three kids in three schools. I have a high schooler, a middle schooler, and an elementary schooler. And we have experienced four different versions of school just in the last year since March. Each quarter has brought a different one, and all three kids have been in different places as far as how school's going. And even when they go back in January, all three of them will be going back in different ways. And so it definitely feels like I'm rolling with the punches this year. But really what I said earlier is something that it's a practice I'm doing every day of separating what I can and cannot control.
Mm-hmm.
And that has given me a lot of freedom because I love control. I don't know about y'all, but I love control. And I think a lot of us, like, we want control. We're desperate for it. And so when I force myself to let go of what I cannot control, which is I don't have a PhD in education. I'm not the ones calling the shots for our school districts, but I can control, what I can control in our home and my interactions with our children and how I can help them. And so that's helping me feel some sense of freedom, and also a sense of like that I can help them, that I can accomplish something, that I can parent well when I take what's mine and leave what's not. And so I think that has been the thing that's helping me the most, as sometimes week in, week out, I don't even know which kids are going on a hybrid or staying home or synchronous via Zoom, or, it's just each week is different, and it can feel overwhelming, but that is one little thing that's helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even my I have I have one that works in New York, and he came back home in early November because he knew how bad it was going to be and came into our bubble so he could stay through January here. So I have one extra adult here. And so it's been nice, but my oldest two, I can't, one is in DC and the other one, my oldest is in Finland, and it's just, they're all just staying put. And so I haven't seen them. I haven't seen my oldest since the end of January, and I haven't seen my son that lives in Washington. We were able to see each other outside. I drove all the way down to Washington to go on a 5-mile walk with him and then drive back home. But we were outside in masks, and he's in his bubble in DC and we're in ours up here. And it will be a while, until we're all back together. But like you said, Melanie, you make the best of it. And Emily, you kind of have to fashion that casserole, right? You have to take the best and then make it into something. And I will say it was really nice. We've all had birthdays, and it was nice for, I think it was my son. We were all able to be in the right time zone and all be on a Zoom. And we, we're in different rooms, and the ones that were here, and my three that were out of the house, they were, all calling in. And it was just so nice to be together. Like gratitude is something that is very raw during these times. And as frustrating as some days are, like when I wake up and think about limited work opportunities and et cetera, and you're saying in unpredictability about your kids' schools and the safety, and all of those decisions feel like it's on you. And you really just have to, it comes down to, like you said, to try to find a rerun of an old show and sit together and enjoy it, like a minute at a time sometimes.
Right. I know we're running a little bit over already, but just one more question. Um, so it sounds like all okay. So it sounds like all of your books sort of talk about parenting with intention, which was also something that I saw in common in all of them. Um, and how did you come to a place where you really decided? Okay, I'm going to reword this a little bit. How did you come to a place where you really decided that that was something you needed to do? I think is what it's asking, to really intentionally look at how you were raising your kids and make decisions about what that was going to look like going forward. Yeah.
Well, I grew up where my mom went on diets every now and then. She wasn't a super heavy diet or anything like that, but I do remember her going on diets and restricting her food and looking in the mirror and like so many of us women do and criticizing herself and things like that. And I know I intentionally do not want my daughter to um, pick up on those things from me. And so that's something that I'm intentionally trying to work on and teach her is to love our bodies no matter what we look like, no matter how much our bodies change over time, because they're meant to change our entire life. We're not meant to stay the exact same shape forever, especially going through childbirth and pregnancy and all of that. It's very easy to look in the mirror and judge yourself, but and so I that's something that I encourage others to is um, to try to be intentional about the way you talk about yourself, the way you talk about others, um, and try to just be as body positive as possible.
Yeah, for me, you meet people who are just naturally calm individuals, and that is wonderful. That is not me. I did not write the book Stay Calm. I wrote the book Calm the Heck Down because I very rarely start from a place of calm. I have to work at it. And so I wanted to write a book and live a life where I had strategies and tips and tactics for how to calm down in everything parenting can throw at you, because when I'm able to calm down, I'm able to parent better, and my kids are able to calm down. And we just have so much that life is throwing at us that I realize that if I don't guide the ship and I don't figure out how to calm myself down and then teach my kids how to calm down, we're going to end up in the dark side. So it's through just a very long time of practicing how to calm down, and learning how to calm down as a family. And so that's what went into the book. And that's definitely if I could pick one thing that parenting has been teaching me over the years, it is definitely how to calm down in the midst of everything that you encounter. And the great thing about learning how to calm down is there's always something new to learn. Just when you figure out one thing, your kids either grow up or the world delivers a pandemic, or there's always something new to learn how to calm down about. So it's a practice that you will always get to do.
Yeah, and I think for me, I wrote the book mainly not so much on how to raise your kids, because that's a personal. We take in a lot of bias and we take in a lot of generational habits. It was really about using the opportunity to raise yourself. To heal a lot of hurt, and to listen and to confront misunderstandings. I share in the book about, like, sometimes we have misplaced loyalties and we don't know where they're from. And once we can sort them out and clean up our language, not so much even what we say to others, but what we say to ourselves, we start telling ourselves the truth. Like you were saying, Emily, about language you heard about maybe your mom saying that, this makes me look fat, I can't wear this, or I don't want to go to that party, I can't tuck this shirt in, those things. Children hold us accountable if we let them. So we start being nicer to ourselves. And I just wanted, especially women, because I've been in that women empowerment space for a long time, I wanted women to be able to forgive themselves, and for your mom to have a clean conversation with you about food. I'm sure she is incredibly proud of you using, I mean, if your mom didn't talk like that, perhaps it wouldn't have intrigued you to go into, um, uh, the sciences like you have, and to get terminal degrees in dietetics. I mean, that's pretty awesome. If I was your mom, I would be like, I wish I didn't say that, but the reason it was necessary to get you where you were at. So to kind of just see the necessity of the things that have happened to us, and to transform them into the things that we really, to take what you have and to make it what you want.
Mhm.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much for joining us this evening. I was so thrilled to have the opportunity to read all of your books, and I got so much out of it. And I am so looking forward to, in the next year, lightening up a little bit, because I also get a little crazy stressed. And paying more attention to the influence that I have on my children, and making sure that I'm influencing them the way that I want to, and also like hopefully calming down the family dinner time battles a little bit. Um, which already a little, we're working, it's small steps. But also 3.5-year-old, I think we're gonna have some battles all the time regardless of what we're doing, so I'm not getting my hopes too high, but to at least alleviate the stress on our end. About, I love that division of responsibility at the dinner table, where we just don't have to, if he doesn't want to eat, that's his business. But thank you all so much for writing your books and for joining us this evening. And thank you, attendees, for coming. We will be uploading the full video to YouTube later on so that you can watch it there. And all of the books are currently available in store, or we have the ebooks listed on our website, on our events calendar. You can see them all in one place. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. It's a pleasure meeting you all.
Thank you so much. This was really fun.
And have a happy new year, you guys.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Night, everybody.
Best of luck with your baby, Emily.
Oh, thank you.